Wake up at dawn, coffee's brewing slow. Check the news, let the headlines flow. Black and white candles light up my screen. Patience is my saddle, keep my focus keen. 3/8 traps my rope, I'm ready to ride. Price pulls back soft, just a dip in the tide. Wait for the break, let it clear that line. Trade above the high and the profit's mine.
Good morning, fellow traders. This is Doug Campbell with Right Way Options, and this is the morning market prep video for May 19th, 2025. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend, because we're going to start this week off with a little bit of pressure and pain in the market. If you hadn't caught the news on Friday, Moody's downgraded U.S. credit as a result of their continued rising debt. And, well, we're seeing ramifications here this morning that are fairly substantial for us to be paying attention to. Let's take a look at what we've got going here this morning. And it is, well, it could be a wild day depending on how the market continues to react. First off, if we take a look at what happened in Asian markets last night, Asian markets were mostly lower last night. We had Shanghai that was able to squeeze out just a tiny little gain yesterday, but the majority of the indexes were lower, with the Nikkei suffering the worst, down 255. Australia was lower. We saw, the Shanghai was up 0.12%. Hong Kong was lower. So pretty rough day in Asian markets last night. And China missed on their retail sales number as well. If we take a look at European markets this morning, European markets are red across the board right now. The DAX is down 34 points, FTSE is down 66, almost 67 points, and CAC is lower by over 60 points. If we take a look at U.S. futures this morning, U.S. futures, well, they've actually improved just a little bit off of lows from when they first got up. Right now, where Dow futures are down just over 300 points. We've got the S&P 500 futures down 66, and the NASDAQ futures down 317 points. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. Now, one of the major factors that is creating that pressure in here is those bond yields. Bond yields moving substantially higher. 4-year bond this morning coming in at 4%. The 10-year bond is up to 4.54. The 30-year bond is over 5% now at 5.02%, putting some serious pressure here on the market. And it's something we're going to have to deal with. We're not going to escape this debt issue in the United States. We're going to have to seriously address it. And it's probably going to mean some pain and suffering for a bit of time to get things under control. But watch that carefully. Now you can see that's having a negative impact here on the dollar. Dollar coming back in here to test this upside trend to see if that can hold. We'll want to watch that carefully. Remember, we're still trying to determine whether or not we're going to break out of this overall downtrend here in the US dollar. Right now, dollar futures are down 95 cents this morning as a result. So we'll have to keep an eye on that pretty closely throughout the day. There could be a lot of fluctuating in these prices over the morning. Let's take a look at what we've got going on in other areas of the market. If we take a look at energy this morning, well, we've got energy looking just a little bit lower. We've had a really nice rally here recently on that, breaking through some resistance here on XLE and really in a very, very bullish pattern. But this morning we've got oil futures down 75 cents a barrel at 61.22 a barrel. Brent is also lower this morning, down about 79 cents at at 64 $12.62 a barrel. And natural gas is also continuing that decline here this morning, down about 7.5 cents. If we take a look at cryptos here this morning, well, they're having a little bit of trouble as well. Bitcoin pulling back here this morning, down $1,269 a coin here on BATO. Very bullish pattern still holding bullish upside trend. So there's nothing wrong with the pattern, just a little bit of pressure here this morning. And then the same thing with Ether as well. We've got Ether down $15 and $16 a coin here this morning, pulling back, feeling a little bit of pressure here. This is very overextended in the short term, so maybe coming back to a little bit of price support would be the correct thing anyway on Ether, but mostly bearish on those cryptos here this morning. If we take a look at precious metals here this morning, well, kind of a reversal of fortune here on that. We've got GLD moving up here today, right now up $59 an ounce at $3,246 an ounce. Silver also rebounding back to the upside here, up 42 cents an ounce at $32.77 an ounce in the futures. Copper, COPX, moving just slightly higher here this morning, right now up 3.5 cents in copper futures, and we've got platinum and palladium also showing some little bit of improvement to the upside here today. So what does all that mean for the day? Well, how about we settle in? Let's buckle up. Let's get ready for the Monday edition of the Morning Market Prep video. Good morning once again, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I hope everyone's having a great day. Kind of a wild night in our area. We had quite the storms rolling through last night, but the good news is power stayed on. Everything's good to go, so I'm expecting a normal day. Let's take a look at what we've got going on here in these index charts. And remember, guys, we want to look at these charts for what they are, not for what we want them to be. And we need to be thinking pretty carefully about this debt situation here and what the longer term ramifications of the market are going to be. By the way, there was also a movement after some really long nights in Congress. They did move forward the bill, the funding bill for the government this weekend. However, I don't think they have enough votes right now as it stands to fully pass it. So they did move it forward, but we'll see how that goes as it progresses. And that's going to be a key element in this debt situation as well. So keep an eye on that. So first off, if we take a look at the Dow right here, we've got this little bit of pullback going on here this morning. Now keep in mind that these pullbacks here in the market could be substantial because of this overextension that we've seen in the short term. But I got to tell you, we're in a very, very bullish upside pattern here, and there's nothing in here right now that suggests that we're really going to suffer any major damage. We've seen every time we get something to pull us back, the buyers just come racing in to push us back higher. So right now, we've got a very, very bullish pattern here in the diamonds. Every reason to believe that that pattern could continue to hold. If the bulls can follow on through, then let's see if we can get back up here and retest that high of Friday. We popped up there and then pulled back heading into the close. A little bit of a shooting star pattern up here on that resistance. And if the bears have anything to say, well, let's see if we can start coming back down here, maybe testing the low side of this little bullish pattern here in the chart to see if that's going to hold. We'll want to be watching that pretty closely, because as we look across here, you can see that upside trend will be pretty critical in here. If that were to fail, well, then we've got that gap in here that could be filled in the diamonds, and pretty big point moves are possible. If we take a look at our SPY, well, let's first take a look at our moving averages in here. If we take a look at this technically, struggling a little bit there with the 200-day moving average as price resistance. So we'll want to watch that carefully. That'll be critical to see whether or not we can hold on to that. If we can, or if we lose that, that could change sentiment here just a little bit in the market. And keep in mind, after such a strong rally to the upside, it really wouldn't be out of the question for us to rest or consolidate here for a considerable period of time to absorb such a big move and allow some of these moving averages to catch up. It also would not be out of the question to see us maybe fade back to retest that 50-day moving average in the chart as well. If we take a look at our SPY, very much the same thing here in the SPY. We're pressing resistance in the chart. Now, clearly this went well above the 200-day moving average, so maybe a pullback to test the 200-day moving average wouldn't be all that bad a situation. Again, we had a high print here on Friday, and trying to stretch up here in the market. If the bulls can find inspiration here today, then see if we can push on through that area of the chart. But one thing we do have to look in here is we've got a very bullish upside trend going on here in the chart. So if we can hold above some price support here, I don't see any major issue here yet technically in that chart except that overextension. So if the bears were to have anything to say, maybe a pushback here, we start testing some of these areas support in the chart, pulling back. It's only going to get a little bit nutty if we pull all the way back into here and we happen to fall into this gap. That is a very big upside gap that could still be filled here in the market. You could see that would be a very big point move for us to come back in there. It may not change this overall trend, however. So kind of keep that in mind. We're just very extended in the short term. If we take a look at our QQQ, very similar here. You can see stretched well above the 200-day moving average. If the bulls have anything to say, well, we can continue that push. We'll have to see if we can get above that bearish engulfing candle that we left in there on Friday. Watch that carefully, but we also have to look in here and say, hey, if those bears have anything to say, depends on how you draw this trend. We are very extended in this move to the upside. If the bears were to really get going and follow through on that bearish engulfing, maybe we come back in here testing some support in the chart. Where it's going to get ugly is if we break back down into that gap. That could be a big point move. We'll still stay bullish overall in the trend, but it could be painful for a lot of folks jumping in that have been kind of chasing this to the upside. So watch that carefully. And IWM also made this big stretch on Friday, just couldn't hold it, ended up with a little bit of a inverted hammer type pattern. Nothing wrong with this pattern in here. It's a very, very bullish upside pattern in the chart. Again, probably not out of the question to see a longer term consolidation if we're going to let everything kind of catch up here to price, or a pullback. But that being said, if the bulls can continue to find that inspiration to push higher, well, then we need to start breaking out of this Friday high up here to see if we can continue to stretch on through to the upside. If the bears have anything to say and we were to break this little price support here in the chart, I would look for a retest down here of the 200-day, or excuse me, 500-day moving average, and possibly a fill of that gap up in the market. Now we have one other technical issue here in the in IWM. You can see we were trying to break this downtrend here on Friday, just unable to hold that. And if we look at that big red line, that major resistance area that goes all the way back to 2021 and 2022, so fairly significant area of resistance. If we were to break or breach that up there, I would look for a good push if we can breach that area to the upside. Let's take a look at our VIX here this morning. And our VIX, well, we just kept pushing, even with the reversal there on the day. In the indexes, we saw the VIX continuing to fall here as if there was nothing at all to be concerned about. Well, now we know that our attention is being drawn to our massive debt that is absolutely unsustainable, and if we don't get to work on doing something with that, we're going to be in major trouble. So either we fix it now or it gets fixed for us, and if it gets fixed for us, it's going to be really painful if we just drive off the cliff without taking care of it. So you can see trying to hold some support level in here in the chart. We'll want to be watching that with the bears pushing today. I would expect a little bit of a push up off of this area here. See if we can test some of these resistance levels a little bit higher. Remember, we've got this downtrend in here as well now that we could test that area of resistance up there. So keep an eye on the VIX. Our T20s, T2122 has been extremely overextended here. On Friday, we ended up closing the day up here at 98.80. It's rare that we're pinned to the ceiling like this. We almost always find some way to catch a little pullback, so watch that carefully. If this gets a little bit to the bearish side, we've got a big open space here for those bears to push, because we have just been in a major buy mode, sending us up into kind of the stratosphere on the short term of the market. Our T2108 on Friday shows that little bit of a hockey stick hint up there. We continued to stretch on higher. We're getting very close to 70% of the stocks above their 40-day moving average in this straight up parabolic move here on that chart. So if the bears do push today, then I would watch for that pullback in here, but keeping in mind, probably not going to be a major issue because we've got some good areas of price support if those bears push back in the chart. Maybe a little bit of relief here in that buy pressure could be a good positive thing to occur. If we continue to stretch on higher, remember, I'm going to be continuously worried about that snapback reversal to the downside from that overextension. So keep that in mind. And T2107 continuing to stretch higher here on Friday as well. Little teeny tiny hockey stick up there. No particular worries on that. But the bearishness that we have this morning, start looking for a little bit of pullback in here to some of these support areas. And I don't think it hurts it at all. Maybe even just coming back in here to test the trend to the upside here in T2107. T2101 will be kind of critical today, I think, if for some reason we happen to see the breadth of the market continuing to expand to the upside, particularly this morning. If that is showing breadth picking up on the bearish wave of the market, that could be a little bit of concern here, so watch that carefully. Now, it could also mean corporate buybacks are really picking up, and they have been picking up here since we're slipping out from that blackout for period here on our earnings. But watch that carefully. If those bears were to really grab a hold and engage again, then that could be a problem for us. And certainly there's a reason for that with bond yields shooting up the way they are, and just worries on the debt overall. So watch that carefully. Let's take a look at our economic calendar here for today. In our economic calendar, not much going on here. We've got a lot of Fed speak in here today. We've got Bostic twice this morning. Williams will be speaking. We're going to have E-commerce retail sales this morning and leading indicators. They're looking for that to decline to a negative 0.8 from a negative 0.7. Keep an eye on that. We've got bond auctions. Logan Kashkari will be speaking this afternoon. If we look into Tuesday, not much going on in there as well, except Fed speak, some bond auctions in there to be paying attention to. Wednesday are normal mortgage applications. We've got Atlanta business inflation expectations, a petroleum status report, some Fed speak, 20-year bond auction. Thursday, we get some of our bigger numbers in here. We're going to get jobless claims, PMI, existing home sales. We got Chicago Fed national activity in there, natural gas report, some bond auctions in there, and a little bit more Fed speak. And then on Friday, new home sales will be out. So not a lot of data in here that would be market moving data here in the market. So we need a week of rest. This might be the week to give us that little bit of rest here in the market. Kind of keep that in mind. On the earnings calendar here today, well, we don't have a whole lot of notable reports here this morning. There are obviously more earnings reports coming out this morning than I'm showing here, but the only notables that I can really come up with is TH here this morning, and then we've got this afternoon EGHT, AGYS, and TRNS for those notables here today. Let's take a look, see if TH is making any moves here this morning. A little pop and drop in the pre-market so far on that, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. We do have some notables coming up this week that are market moving. For example, Home Depot, I think, is up tomorrow. Target will be reporting, I think, Wednesday, Thursday this week. So kind of keep an eye on some of those notables here coming up. Watch those closely. Let's take a look at a few stocks that could be setting up for today. But before we do that, everyone, if you could do me that favor, if this is the first time you've seen these videos, please click that subscribe button on YouTube. Doesn't cost you anything to subscribe to the channel. And thanks to everyone who has and continues to support the channel. If you find these videos to be useful or helpful, if you could do me that favor, and that'd be clicking that thumbs up button, leaving a brief comment. That helps the channel to grow. Remember, everyone, even an emoji counts as an engagement with a video, so thank you so much to everyone who does that. I truly appreciate it. And if you have questions or anything that I can help with, please make sure and ask those questions in the comments. I'd be happy to help as much as I can. Let's take a look at some of these stocks that could be setting up. And remember, everyone, these aren't recommendations to buy or sell any security. You need to do your own due diligence and be very, very careful in this market. Now, what you're going to find is a lot of these here today are going to be bullish pattern setups here in the market because we have been so bullish. But a lot of that could change today if we get a good bearish push in the market. Not saying we will, but just kind of keep that in mind. So no recommendations to buy or sell any security. Do your diligence on these charts and these patterns because things can change very quickly here in a condition of being overextended in the market. First off, let's take a look. BBY, very nice bullish pattern in here, and we're gapping down in the pre-market here on BBY. But notice they've been picking this up all morning long, trying to push that back up. Keep an eye on that beautiful upside trend. I've placed a price alert here on the chart. Remember, it may have to rest in here a few more days in there and then pop on through. But watch that carefully on BBY, really trying to come up, looking decently in here. You'll want to keep in mind it's going to report on 5/29. So anticipation of those earnings could move that higher. But remember to be really careful around those earnings reports. Another chart I placed an alert on here at the end of the week is Skyworks. This is a beautiful, nice little consolidating pattern, holding above a support level here in the chart. Nice little hold of an upside trend. If we can get any bullishness going here in the market, I would look for that to pop on through and continue to stretch to the upside. Definitely worth paying attention to. Take a look at Starbucks in here. Starbucks has been resting back just a little bit, struggling with a little bit of price resistance right there. That's that entire line I've got up there as an alert. And as this rests back into this trend in this area of price support, if we can catch any bullishness in the market, then I would look for that opportunity that might push on through here to the upside. I'd keep an eye on Starbucks. I have been mentioning that one, and I've been mentioning Chipotle here for some time. Pop my alert, now resting in a nice tight consolidation here the last 3 trading days, and I usually really like that pattern. We may have a couple of more here to just kind of finish that out back to the trend, and then I'd look for that opportunity there in Chipotle that could move on higher here. As you know, I've mentioned WDC multiple times, popping that alert, looking good in here. Just a slow grind to the upside in the last few days in here. Just a nice little tight consolidation. Again, if those bulls can get something going here on the day, I look for that opportunity that could push on through to retest this resistance and maybe even pop up into this big open gap that needs to be filled on WDC. Valero Energy has been looking really good, breaking through the downtrend here, breaking through resistance in the chart. Still may need a little bit of rest or consolidation in here to get back over here to trend. But that being said, if we can catch some bullishness in the market, we know that our distillates have not been all that strong. So if they can crank those machines up and really start refining, we may have that upside trend coming here in Valero, worth keeping an eye on. Shopify, same thing, big stretch here in that chart from my alert, as you can see here in the chart, really pushing to the upside, and I think we're coming into that area of trend and a nice area of price support. If we can get some bullishness in the market, then that may stretch on through to the upside, worth paying attention to. If you take a look at some of the old boring things in the market, worth paying attention to there, and today might be the day that things change here a little bit for some of these protection type trades. Take a look at Archer Daniels here. Nice little morning star pattern here on these 3 candles, trying to follow through here this morning. Trend might be right through here. Watch that carefully. It could have to rest a little bit more to build enough energy to continue to stretch on up, but I think it's worth keeping an eye on Archer Daniels. If you take a look at CF Industries again in that ag sector, food related sector, very strong upside trend, breaking through resistance here. Nice little consolidated pattern. I would look for that next opportunity there. Of course, you want to be keeping an eye on Lowe's and Home Depot. Lowe's is going to be on the 21st. We've got Home Depot up tomorrow on the 20th. Both in very, very bullish patterns if you feel lucky to trade those earnings. And be really careful with that, but watch those closely because they're both setting up and looking good. Take a look at utilities. I got to tell you, one of the things that is a little bit concerning here on Friday and Thursday, we saw a good, strong rally in utilities, which may have been just a little bit of an acknowledgement that the institutions knew something was going to be coming around here on Monday or today in that Moody's report. Watch that carefully, stretching through resistance here. Old boring companies with big dividends stretching out does not necessarily say we are super bullish or confident in the market. Any rest or pullback up here on utilities, I would look for that next opportunity to the upside. Take a look at some of these old borings like Altria continuing to stretch up. Now I got to tell you, Altria could easily go south. We're pushing this resistance in here. We did break trend. We broke support here in Altria. That stretch to the upside could easily roll over into a short, but you'll want to be paying attention to it in a defensive type market condition. We may just perk these right back up because of that strong dividend yield. You might want to be taking a look at things like Verizon trying to break that downtrend in here. Again, a good strong dividend pair breaking through some support, breaking through the downtrend resistance. Any rest or pullback sets up an opportunity. As you guys know, I've been in AT&T here for a long time. AT&T stretching back up. There's the weekly chart that I'm trading. Still looking good in here. So some of these defensive sector stocks have been perking back up and showing quite a bit of strength. So watch that carefully. If the bears do have something to say, if they do get going here in the market, the pullback could be painful. So look for a little protection. And I've got to bring up some of those precious metals in here for that protection. We've seen how they have rallied really strong when we get a little concerned in the market. Silver trying to push up. We've got to get through this downtrend in here in silver and hold a higher low, but then we might be able to reverse that back to the upside. And gold, as you can see, making this double top in here, pulling back, not looking so good at the moment, but that may be another thing. If we see these bond yields continue to run higher, maybe a little bit of rush back into safety here. If I look at GLD on a weekly, there isn't anything wrong with that on the weekly pattern. So holding in here a little bit of support, if those bulls can get going, there may be some opportunity in there as well. So watch that. If we do continue to see downside pressure, some of these safety plays in the market, things like consumer staples that pushed up pretty strongly here on Thursday and Friday, still got to deal with this downtrend in the chart and this price resistance right in here. But watch that carefully, and there are staples in there that are looking pretty strong. Just drop into that sector and you're going to see several of those starting to perk back up, move on through. I mentioned ADM, there's Philip Morris moving through, so keep an eye on some of those old borings. I still like the way Constellation Brands here is looking, breaking through resistance. This is a big holding now of Warren Buffett's. Good safety play, dividend play in here, pushing up. Little rest or pullback in here might just be that opportunity for a potential entry into Constellation. So there's quite a few things for you to take a look at, pay attention to. I want to wish you all a fantastic Monday. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for supporting the channel. Thanks for all the kind words and comments. I really appreciate it. I'll see you right back here bright and early Tuesday morning. And for RWO and HRC folks, I'll be seeing you in the trading room here soon. Y'all take care, be safe, and as always, I wish you all the best.